Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is a course designed for young and retired people to learn in any language and in any location the art of entrepreneurship or how to start your own business and be successful. The heart of this program is to teach you to verify with considerable evidence that your venture will succeed. In essence, it's analyzing failure before it begins. The first step is to categorize products and services. You have a lot of products and services, but over the years, we've categorized them. They're categorized into consumer goods or business goods. Now, the reason this is important is what influences a sale or an investment has something to do with what category of product it's in. Now let's define a consumer good. That's a product like, let's say, a donut shop. You go and buy a donut and a cup of coffee. The reason this is important, you might need a location where there's traffic and convenience. The second category might be called business categories. Take, for example, when you go to a construction site, you might see a company that has rented the equipment to dig a hole. The reason for this is he cannot afford to own the equipment purposely, so he rents the equipment. This is called a business product. Now, the next thing I want you to understand is how to measure these categories. There's a thing called primary demand, like the demand for pizzas. How many pizzas are sold in your city? But you're not interested in that as much as you might be selective demand. How many particular brands of pizzas are sold in a category, in this area? So we want to make that distinction because if primary demand for pizzas is expanding year in and year out, it's easier to start into that business. But again, we want to know selective demand, a category of the pizzas that we sell. Now, I want you to understand the concept of how to compete. There's a thing called product differentiation, utility of the product and the service. People buy a product for a reason. They want satisfaction for this purchase that they made. So we must identify why people buy a product or a service. And I'm going to give you an illustration. A very successful business is called Starbucks coffee shop. People line up in the morning and don't hesitate to give $2 to $5 for a cup of coffee. Now let's assume you want to compete with them. Well, if you go into a Starbucks coffee shop, they get brown chairs. They have a very traditional layout. If you go to another coffee shop, they might have chandeliers or a better looking coffee shop. So the thing is, if you open up a coffee shop next to Starbucks, why should people come to your place instead of their place? Well, of course, you can decorate it more, have chandeliers and better club chairs. Or you can do one other thing you can do. You know, today, if you take a photograph of your skin where there might be skin cancer and send it by email to a dermatologist, that dermatologist can determine in minutes if you're going to get or if you have skin cancer. So the thing we want to do is, let's say you advertise, you let it be known when you go to your Starbucks, the one you invented or developed, that if people come in or have a photograph taken of their area of the skin that might have skin cancer and send it by email. In a matter of minutes, you'll know if you have skin cancer or you're going to get skin cancer. Now, this is certainly a big thing to attract you to go, or a new customer to go to Starbucks. And we have this reality. I can speak from personal experience. My daughter is a dermatologist, and she does this all the time. So we want to have product differentiation, and I think if you did this, a lot of people would get attracted to Starbucks. There's another new segment that I want to discuss with you, which is referred to as different business concepts. For example, you'll hear about a franchise. You know, you want to own a McDonald's franchise, you want to own a Marriott franchise. These are different concepts. However, what you learn about business is going to apply to them as well. You might be interested in what we call a mom and pop shop. This is a small business where you might eke out a living, and a pretty good living. But the big money, and the reason you want to take this program, is to go public, which means an initial public offering. You want to build a business so that you can float a stock issue. People will buy that stock, and you could measure the value of your business based on the income that it generates. And then the advantage of this is what you're worth financially is determined, and also it prepares you to merge with another company or develop new products and grow forever. That's the thing we want to talk about, is an initial public offering and what it means to you. The thing we have to do is to generate some kind of revenue based on this modest-sized business that you started, and illustrate. I said illustrate, which means close to proving that how it will grow in terms of increasing revenue. When you can verify that you have a going concern that's generating revenue and a profit, and if you could illustrate that if you project it a certain way, it's going to grow faster, and you now are prepared to go to a stockbroker and ask them to consider floating a stock issue, which is called an initial public offering, and they'll go float it, and the public will buy it, especially some of these Middle East countries who have tons of oil money now, but they're looking for things to invest in. In fact, that donut shop that I referred to in Washington, D.C., is owned by Arab investors, because after the oil, they have so much money, they want to go into bona fide businesses. So there's a market for your product if you can prove reasonably that it's generating revenue and it has potential. And that's called an initial public offering, which I want you to consider doing. As a matter of fact, I gave an illustration where a $5,000 investment could generate a $60 million capitalization of the business that we talked about. Now, we already talked about the theory of how to start your own business and gave an illustration of Starbucks and some other illustrations, categorized products and services. The next area I want to talk about is, I said to you, the big thing you have to determine is what kinds of business are you going to start off with. And I want you to use this as an illustration. Take your local newspaper and study for 1 week and study each advertisement and determine to yourself and to me what the objective of the advertisement is. That'll give you an illustration of what they're trying to do. Similarly, take a national magazine that you generally look at and study it and identify at least 100 firms that have an advertisement and identify what they're trying to do with that advertisement. This will give you an illustration if they're accomplishing their objectives. For example, if the advertisement falls flat on their face, you can analyze what went wrong. Was it the product or the delivery system? This will give you an idea of what's in demand and is not being filled by the current approaches. It'll give you an approach to identifying what product to go into. Now, I want you to understand another concept. There's a famous hotel company called Marriott. You've all heard of this. Now, Marriott has a very unique approach. They build a hotel and then they sell it because it's so promising. They're so confident in their methodology. They identify a location, build a hotel, make it successful, and find a franchisee or a person who wants to buy it, and they teach them how to operate it. Now, we're going to go one step further to you. If you want to start your own business and don't know what to do, we will identify a business, develop it, and you could buy it from us. That's how confident we are on the methodology we are suggesting.